Yeah.
So we could hold a common intention to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
We could do
Yeah.
that, you know.
What is it we're trying to get to the bottom of?
This whole process of fooling yourself, getting caught in confusion. So on how thought has become so destructive.
I don't know if this is an aside, but it seems to me that if a person experiences conflict, that is a manifestation of the deep intention. Conflict being a rejection of what is going on. And that very rejection is the desire to move.
To move where? Hmm? To move where?
Not necessarily to move anywhere, but for this suffering within myself already is an expression of the deep intention. It's not a philosophical thing. The very fact that I suffer, I might say, is a proof of the deep intention.
There is the deep intention, but the suffering is the fact that it's blocked, you see, at the same time.
The suffering is the rejection of the disharmony, of the lack of.
Well, the suffering is maybe an attempt to reject the disharmony. You see, and see, at some stage we'd say that in itself is another mistake. Right? You see that the disharmony must be seen. See, to blast the disharmony is more disharmony. But if we can have the proper perception of how it's all coming out of thought, then seeing that the feelings are coming out of thought, seeing that anything comes out of thought, and the thought being incorrect is enough to end that, if it's working right.
Okay. The fact of suffering, I don't know, the reason I like it so much, I guess, it seems to me totally outside of my thinking or any philosophical movement. The very fact that I suffer is already a movement toward truth.
Yeah, it comes from the conflict of the movement toward truth, let's say, and some resistance, I think, from the conditioning. But you see, if the movement toward truth is very weak, then you start to avoid it. The suffering may be reduced.
The conditioning is the avoidance, is a movement away from truth.
Yeah.
Okay. So the conditioning, which is a resistance, produces a suffering,
mm-hmm.
which pushes one toward truth. I think the reason I'm saying this, I don't see that we have any need to look for or try to find a deep intention, that it's in us whether we like it or not.
Well, it's there implicitly, but we can now say, okay, all of us have it, perhaps everybody has it. It may be very varied in many people. Say, okay, all of us have it, perhaps everybody has it. It may be very varied in many people, so that they can't be aware of it. See if we could be aware of it, then we are that much stronger in the whole thing.
Everybody has the same deep intention, but it's just deeply buried in some people, and other people it's more near to the surface?
The very nature of the organism contains that it's contained in that.
A need to get to the bottom of things, if that's a good definition.
It's nothing personal to me or you.
I don't know, you could discuss it or share the meaning.
What feels frustrating, using our word frustrating to me, is that to get to the bottom of something without examining what that frustration is difficult. In other words, we're kind of talking in an abstract level, so that if we actually had a frustration, I don't think that we have time to actually follow it down to the bottom. But if this group were to remain together and we stayed with a potential frustration or conflict and really focused on it, we could, in fact, reach a common understanding of that.
Yes, I mean, the point is the suffering is basically due to thought, I'm suggesting. As thought is constituted at present, all thought must bring about suffering. But of course, it may change. If the thought process can be aware of this and get to the bottom of it, then it needn't, you see. So, see, at present, there is no thought which will not sooner or later bring about suffering.
So aren't you, in a sense, contradicting what you said?
Why?
Because we don't necessarily have to follow a specific thought.
No, but any thought which is dominated by the conditioning, will bring about suffering. But all thought is connected to the conditioning, and you can't keep it out. It may be kept, maybe made weak for a while, so this thought remains relatively free. But sooner or later it'll come in, you see.
As long as we're examining our thinking, as opposed to what we're thinking about, as long as we're examining our thinking per se, rather than the specific, maybe there's a chance.
Yeah, well, see, so another way, but I wanted to say that we should rather expect suffering. It's not a surprise. And that it will require this patience and this compassion, and in the group or also when we break through it to some extent, you see, the anger and hate may go, and the energy would turn to koinonia.
Our conditioning thought is the one that blocks the movement, the deep movement of the energy.
Yeah.
From to start moving.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we start watching that
conditioning thought. Yeah, it seemed to me that if this lock were broken, the suffering, then a lot of energy would be released, you see. And this suffering becomes energy, that becomes passion as energy. You see what is transformed into energy.
Passion as energy, isn't there a word for that?
Well, I don't know, but the word passion is ambiguous because its basic meaning is suffering. But also we use it in the sense of intense energy of some sort. And why are they connected? You see, possibly because a tremendous energy is locked there, and if it were released, then having gone through suffering to the end, then energy is released, you see. See, because it might be confusing at first, passion usually means a lot of energy, and it sounds as if why should we connect it with suffering?
Because it's blocked.
Yeah, that's the energy. See, so suffering is the first form of energy that we meet it, and then we meet it as great energy.
You also use suffering in another way. They found you to suffer, to allow to happen.
Yes, so that's right, to let things happen. That means a kind of patience or letting things happen, right? But these things you have, patience is a kind of suffering. You wouldn't ask for it if it weren't somehow your wish weren't to do it right away.
There may be a kind of energy which is, a passionate person may be seen as a very dynamic, active person,
Mm-hmm.
but it may require a great deal of energy to just let things happen,
Yeah.
to not interfere, to just be along with things as they go.
Yes, I mean, the energy is the energy to see the process of interference, and then when that is seen, then the energy greatly increases.
The people who are impatient are mainly the people who are really affected by more of the conditioning thought.
Yes, see, impatience is the very fast reaction. I would say we could say that if in a group like this, the fast reaction is a sign of impatience. People don't want to suffer their frustration, but want to destroy it by some aggressive rage or anger.
I was colluding just a moment ago. I was thinking that the energy that we don't talk about, maybe we could talk about, is just the energy of love. That maybe that's the energy that is the non-thought energy that maybe we could dialogue about.
Yes, but how would you dialogue about it? You see, if the whole thing is blocked, it's not going to manifest. You see that it's there as a potential. Now, love is almost undefinable, so it's hard to talk about it. I mean, we'd have to get much further. See, I think that going through compassion gets in that direction.
You're saying that it's very difficult to get there in a practical way just by diving right into it.
Yeah, well, you can't dive in because there's nowhere to dive. I mean, you don't know what it is or how you're to do it. You see, so anyway, that's this process of dialogue. this is the sort of the vision of it, the picture of how it might work, or at least it helps to guide us. It's a kind of imagination that helps guide us, you see, and we have to be ready to change it or correct it if it isn't working, but that's the sort of thing that we'll want to start. You see, so in the dialogue group, everybody's in a circle, because then that it puts everybody at least to equal terms in that way, and we don't have a position of leadership. You see, if you have some other shape, then somebody takes the position of leadership, and that center already operates as a meaning to cause everybody to focus there and to give the authority. You see, so, but that's not enough to stop it. You see, the authority could still be easily with the circle, but it's a useful step. And then we should have several facilitators, you see, who may be able to comment on the thing and participate to some extent, and and so on. But their job is to work themselves out of the job, to become less and less facilitating. And it may, you know, we know it's going to take time. You see, that we're going to have to come back to it again and again. One or facilitator, or two, at most three, depending on the size of the group. Now beyond that, there isn't a lot of organization or structure and of a fixed nature. See, so we do fix that much, but Damari likes to talk of the facilitator as leading from behind, which is a useful way of thinking about it. But eventually, the group would function without a specific leader. See, that's the picture, or the vision. Anybody might, for the moment, take that position and give it up. And so it has no fixed purpose. You see, learning. If we say learning to talk together cannot be defined as a fixed purpose, you don't know what it means until you do it. Now, that will then create a new culture, as I say, a new society, one where the meaning and the energy will flow together. And see, this collective assumptions have tremendous power, and the anger can come out in the collective thing where other people can see it. And it's sort of another phrase that Mari likes to use, which I think is useful, is inside and outside. That you see outwardly what's happening, but that also is what's happening to each person inwardly. That you can only see this outward thing properly from the inward. That anytime, say, you look at a television drama, there's nothing but spots of light, electrons, but you get feelings and so becoming and people and this and that. But see, all those feelings are really your own feelings, which are attributed to that image, right? So similarly, if people are going through all this in the group, then your own feelings, which will be basically similar to theirs, will tell you what's happening. You're learning not only about them, but about yourself and about all the relationship. You see, so it's very useful to have something from the outside as well as the reflection from the inside.
I'm wondering about this energy of love, which you seem to be so blocked against. Since the energy of love may be one of these underlying, like an energy of intention that we all hold in common, I wonder if one can choose to allow that love energy to sort of find its way through the barriers and the blocks.
Well, I don't think that this is a matter of choice any more than the deep intention is. You see, would your deep intention be to have this happen? You see, you cannot choose the deep intention. If it's a superficial intention, it won't do it. You see, I think that will happen implicitly if we can get along into impersonal fellowship and compassion and so on. That already is beginning to move that way. You see, and the thing will go further.
So you would hold the intention of fellowship rather than
well,
the intention
our intention is to get to the bottom of what's stopping it, but we have all this in the back of our mind that out of this may emerge fellowship, and compassion, and meaning flowing together, you see.
Is So the inference is we don't really know what the result will be.
No, but we're suggesting this could be a result, and it looks plausible. We may have to change the view if we find it doesn't work, but I think there's enough evidence to suggest that it looks reasonable. And it has happened.
I thought you were going to say something.
See, I said that it's very hard to consider a positive intention to do something because we don't know what it means to do it, you see. But a negative intention is easier. An intention to deal with the negative is easier. We have got to learn, how that negative is connected with thought, with the intention to think and so on. So that we can see the thing arising in thought and thought arising from whatever it is, the impulse to think. Right?
Being the blocks and the distortion.
What?
The negative being the blocks
yes.
and the distortion.
Yes. The negative is all this confusion going on about whether feelings are independent or are they dependent on thought, as a typical example. Or going on is to say, is the ecological problem a result of thought, or is it just an external problem? Can we treat it that way? You see, all through the society, that's the basic source of the trouble. And it happens outwardly and inwardly. I mean, all the problems of society basically have that nature. The ones we can't solve, that is. And so we say that the other problems are in principle solvable. See, I think all these problems could be solved. Say, the ecological problem could have been solved long ago if it hadn't been for that confusion in thought. The energy problem could have been solved. You see the connection between the self-image and all these thoughts. And so say, if you are investing in nuclear energy, or if you favor it, then you will have a strong desire to defend that and distort, and you will engage in collusion with others to do so.
What you're saying to our situation in the last 2 or 3 days, there's some people who feel things have been going too slow. There's some people who have been feeling things have been going too fast. There are other people who want to explore this particular avenue or that particular avenue. Essentially, isn't that sort of a microcosm of what the outer?
Yeah. Yes, I mean this. So this confusion in the outer, this failure of harmony, is also in the inner. Now, it's hard to know how you would judge going too fast or too slow. But we can see that there's the negative thing, that reaction is too fast. People have been jumping in. This is a part of the culture, that people do jump in too fast. Now, probably in these tribes of hunter-gatherers, they probably, my feeling would be that they would respond very slowly. I don't know if it's true, but I couldn't see how it would work otherwise, giving plenty of time for people to talk and plenty of time to think and work it out.
If we were to just focus, let's say, on the ecological problem as a group here, and we would use dialogue, and we would simply talk about it from our various perspectives, and you're saying that would help us lead to a solution?
Well, I think we would soon discover that the ecological problem is not independent. It cannot be solved on its own level, because it arises from thought and from this whole confusion going on. So we would have then to say that if we don't go into thought, we're going to find different people who don't agree on how to solve the ecological problem and don't listen to each other. And they get into high temperature situations and so on. And they don't work together, they work at cross purposes, and all the energy is sort of dissipated. So then you say, okay, this ecological problem didn't begin with the ecology anyway. It began with thought, which produced this terrible situation, the thought of how to exploit nature and so on, or why we must do it. And we have to go into all that. So the ecologists would have to talk. There are different kinds of ecologists with different basic assumptions. They'll have to listen to that, to all those assumptions. And if they don't, it's plain they're not going to get anywhere.
So if we just took that one issue, hopefully within this group, and probably doesn't exist, but within, we would get the right types of people that would represent people who would bring the various perspectives together.
Well, whatever it is, you see, in a group like this, we can't focus only on ecology. There are all sorts of people here, you see. But if it happens that there's a group of ecologists, they could begin on ecology, and then they would find that they were spreading out, because if you can't, you also must bring in economics, and you've got to bring in a lot of other things. And you can't stop it, so you can't restrict it. You see, the ecological problem is not separate from the economic problem, and both are due to thought.
You see the world situation getting better from the last time we met?
Well, in some ways better, and in some ways there are more difficulties. Obviously, the danger of worldwide nuclear war has seized it. The communist regime has collapsed with all its, I want to call it tyranny, and collusion and deception. And some of the people who replace it, they not know exactly what they're doing, but they seem to be more serious than the communists were. We still have some of the communists want to take power again, but if the economy fails, then they may do so, or somebody similar. And see, the danger is that the former Soviet Union is falling apart, and the parts start to fight each other. They start to sell their nuclear technology or other arms to surrounding countries in Asia. And we build up a very volatile situation. You see, because we also add to that the West is also selling. See, every country who makes arms say, we cannot do it economically if we only make our own arms. We must sell it to somebody else. Now, that's thought, right? See, so therefore, they sell the arms to all sorts of people, and then lo and behold, they say, it's terrible, these people are armed, they're doing terrorism, they're going to attack us. And we have to attack them first, and so on. But every country that makes arms is compelled, or at least thinks it's compelled, to sell them. Right? Now, that is a very highly contradictory policy. Yeah. Okay, we'll break it. I meant that, you see, that it's the thought, this incoherent thought, that has to be seen, because the fact that it's so contradictory doesn't mean these people are idiots or stupid. It means that they're trapped in this thought process. Okay, we'll have a break.
Does anybody want to order cakes now?